Coleridge is embodying a first-person narrator. And a first-person narrator, we always have to take into account that the first-person narrator is experiencing something and telling that experience to us. It's not a third-person narrator, which is removed from the action. Consequently, we've got the wedding guest who has his little experience of wanting to go off to the party, and the mariner who has had his experience and is now relating it to the wedding guest. And in this part at the very beginning, the wedding guest says, I'm terrified of you. I fear you. Why? Because you just said everybody on the ship died. Am I talking to a ghost? Are you a living being? You look mad. You look crazy. You got this shock of white hair and these rags of clothing, and you're all tan and thin. Are you dead? Well, the mariner says, I'm not dead. I didn't die. I stayed alive. Good for me. I survived and everybody else in the platoon was annihilated. I survived and everybody else on that ship died. Isn't that great? And there's a sense almost of, I think, of irony or of cynicism in him when he says, right, that 1,000 slimy things lived on. And so did I. I'm like those slimy things. And with all those other men dead and him staying alive in the midst of those hoarse doldrums, he's looking out over the sea and he sees nothing but rotten water and rotten hulks and rotten trash and filth and the flotsam and jetsam that's sitting there rotting and the slimy snakes that are sea serpents, the eels there. Then he looks back on the deck and he sees the rotten ship and the rotted corpses of the men that have died at his feet. Everywhere he turns, there's nothing but filth, death, rottenness. And I think in that moment of recognizing that he's seeing nothing but rottenness, he also recognizes that I am in the midst of this hoarse doldrums. I feel a sense of guilt and horror, but at the same time I can't pray. I can't bless anything. It's impossible for me to even voice a prayer. So as he says, a wicked whisper came and made my heart as dry as dust. That spiritual moment where we can't call up even an ounce of love for the world around us, impacted by the sense that the world is itself a dead place, a material place of nothing of beauty. It's at that moment that we are, I think, in the worst state, the state of hellishness. And he closes his eyes at that moment. And he feels the oppression of sky and sea, and it's all weighing on him, like as though he were part of the dead, but he's not. He's still alive. Well, in the midst of that awfulness, that enduring of that horror of death all around him, he lasts for 7 days and 7 nights, a long period, a full cycle period. And at last he has this vision where the moon goes up into the sky, and softly, it says, it doesn't rush as it does earlier. It softly goes up into the sky, and a couple stars rise up, and the moon shining down on the water changes what he's looking at, so that he looks out and he suddenly sees the water's on fire. And there are these images of the snakes in the moonlight, silvery in the moonlight. And from them comes the water, as he says, like hoary flakes, like flakes of fire, ice coming off them. And as he looks out and he sees that, blue and glossy green and velvet black, he suddenly realizes, that's beautiful. I never noticed it before, but the trash, the flotsam, the jetsam, the dead things, the dead fish, the snakes moving in it, is beautiful. Just like a painting or a sunset is just as beautiful. And because he is able to feel the sense of beauty, he suddenly can bless those things. Bless that thing that's dead. Bless that thing that is in trouble. Bless that thing that's suffering. And that's what then frees him. He suddenly can pray. He's freed from that terrible hoarse doldrums that has trapped his heart in a dead state. And the albatross, the weight of his guilt, falls off him. See, he realizes, I think, to some degree, he has done a horrible thing, but everything else has suffered equally in this sense, and so the albatross no longer is needed. It's no longer part of the weight that he has to feel, and it drops into the sea with all the other dead things. And he prays. He asks for mercy, and he asks for help and for pity, and realizes that he can't simply endure on his own anymore. And that changes him, alters him entirely from where he was prior to this.